So today is Sunday, August the 21st, 2011, and I'm back from my travels around New York City for today. Today was a relatively long distance journey. I traveled out to Queens, New York, which is one of the boroughs of New York City. While I was traveling today, I brought with me my handy dandy video camera, and I took lots of little shots of the things that I saw. And right now I'm going to tell you about what I did, and while I'm talking I'm going to show little clips of the things that I'm describing where appropriate. So my day started relatively earlier than some of the other days I've had in the last few days. Was awake at around 8 o'clock or maybe 8:30, and but it did take me quite a while to actually sort of get moving. Well, not necessarily that I was just sort of lazing around or anything. I was planning out my day. There's a few last-minute items I added to my the sites that I wanted to see. So I was doing some research on those and planning those into my day. So that's what delayed me a little bit. But when I had my shower and I got everything together and ready. When I went today, I wore more traditional sort of biking clothes. Because I knew I was going to be going a lot of distance, and I wanted to make sure that I was going to be comfortable for that distance. So when I left the hotel, it was around 10:30 or so, and I just went straight to a cafe to have breakfast. And I ended up finding a place that was kind of more of a coffee shop, but it ended up being fine. I got a bagel, and I had a nice glass of fresh orange juice, and also a muffin, which was good way to start the day, and that didn't take very long either. It wasn't a sit-down restaurant or anything where you had to wait for stuff to come. You just stood in line and got it, and then ate, and then it was, lunch only took about 15 minutes, and by 10:45 I was on the road and on my way out to Queens. But actually, as I got to the coffee shop to go inside for lunch, I started to go and lock up my bike. And I realized I didn't have the keys for either of my two big, heavy chain locks, which was kind of a little bit of a shock and a little bit annoying because I was trying to get going, and I knew that my keys were probably back here at the hotel room. But then I figured, well, on a day like today where I'm going to be doing a lot of actual travel, I probably won't be locking up my bike very much, and it's not like it's in Manhattan anymore. It's not like the high traffic area, so I figured I'd probably be fine without my keys. So I figured that there's a way that I could use the chains that I had and just sort of dangle them over my bike and make it look like it was locked. So that's what I did for the remainder of the day, and it ended up being totally fine. But the roads that I took to get to Queens are a little bit different than I guess you probably would usually do to get to Queens. I wanted to see more of the bridges along the East River. So I took the Williamsburg Bridge across to Brooklyn, and then I traveled sort of up and diagonally up towards the area of Queens that I wanted to see. Most of the things that I wanted to see in Queens were in an area that was called Flushing. And so seeing the Williamsburg Bridge was pretty neat. It's a really big suspension bridge. It was actually the largest suspension bridge for about 21 years. It was built in 1903, and it was the second bridge that was crossing the East River. So right after, or a few years after the Brooklyn Bridge was completed, this one was built, and it's a little bit further up the river, or quite a bit further up the river. And I think so far I think it's been my favorite bridge to go across on a bike because it's a double-decker bridge, so there's lots of space, and they have like a whole dedicated lane for biking, and it's set aside so there's like a left lane and a right lane, so you can sort of for both directions. Whereas the Brooklyn Bridge was really narrow, it was only really designed to be a walkway originally, I think. And so they have a line that goes right down the middle, so one little half of this little walkway is for biking in both directions, and the other half is for walking. And both sides is not very wide, so there's always pedestrian traffic spilling over into the bike lane. And when two bikes have to pass, it's always really tight as well. But I really liked the Williamsburg Bridge for that reason, and it was really a long suspension bridge. Like I really noticed that I was climbing up, getting to the middle. I just seemed to be kept climbing and climbing and climbing until I finally got to the middle, and then it's going back downhill, and that part goes really fast. So when I got to Brooklyn, I basically the route I took to get there, to get to Queens, is a little bit. It's not the common way I think you do it. The Queensboro Bridge is, the way to get to Queens, I guess, and the Williamsburg Bridge puts you out pretty low, so you have to kind of go. I had to kind of go diagonally up through Brooklyn into Queens to get to the area of Queens that I wanted to see, which is called Flushing, Queens, like flushing like a toilet. So getting there was quite a long ride, and the road that I took was kind of like an industrial road. A lot different than the sort of things that I've been riding on so far. There's a lot of big warehouses, and on a Sunday, the area was like totally abandoned. But there's lots of graffiti on the walls and everything, and it looked like a very nice area. But when I got to Queens, it was really nice. Queens is a really nice place from what I saw of it. The first place that I stopped in Queens, in the Flushing area of Queens, was a high school that's called Forest Hills High School. And the reason that I went there was because I was reading, and I just read it this morning, that Simon and Garfunkel both went to that high school together, and at that point they were already friends, and that's where they went to school when they were making their very first, earliest music between the two of them. And that's when they were working under the names of Tom and Jerry, and they were kind of doing an Everly Brothers thing, and they were doing well at that. They were, I believe, they went on the Ed Sullivan Show with their act. But I guess after that point, like the popularity of the Everly Brothers kind of started to drop, and so did Tom and Jerry, or Simon and Garfunkel. So they didn't sing together for many years when they were in college and university. So I knew that Simon and Garfunkel went there, and when I went on the Wikipedia article to read about it, I saw that there's all these other people that also went there, like people that you recognize. It said that Ray Romano used to go there, but I think that was a mistake, because I went and read his profile too, and he went to a different high school, I believe. But it also said that Jerry Springer was from that area, and he went to that high school. And the Ramones, the punk band from the 70s, they went to that high school. Also in the fictional world of Spiderman, Peter Parker apparently went to that high school, Forest Hills High School. So definitely a worthwhile landmark to see, just because lots of history began there. The next place I went to was a public school, which is called Public School 164. I guess they just number their public schools over in Queens, and that was another Simon and Garfunkel location for me. Simon and Garfunkel went to school for many years together, and it was when they were in public school that Simon and Garfunkel first really got to know each other. When Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel were both acting in a play of Alice in Wonderland. And it was during that period that they really got to know each other, and they started to find their common interests, and they started to sing together, and the rest is history. So I mean, it was cool to see that place, because that's where those two guys came together, and that's what formed the sound that I really like to hear. The next place I went to was another